as I just mentioned, I just started recording, so this is the Canvas Outcomes Training, and my name is Dr. Kelly Schaefer. Again, please call me Kelly. And today we're going to look at a feature of Canvas that can do quite a few things. One of the primary functions, of course, is allows it to track student learning outcomes for your courses, but it can do a whole lot more. So what today, and I will post these in chat right now for those of you who are online. I do have some handouts. Let's try that real quick. Hopefully it will allow me to add it. So I will send these handouts to you. Those of you who are online, I will get them to you afterwards. A lot of the stuff we're going to walk through today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with today's agenda. So bear with me. Okay. Okay, so we have this lovely room here that you all read, so you can look at the screen in front of you. I'll be walking around. The first part is a very quick overview of outcomes, which I'll do a quick PowerPoint, won't take long. The rest of the stuff is going to be hands-on. So I hope that you brought your laptops with you, and we're going to practice with it. And the nice thing about outcomes is once you start adding them, until you create a rubric with them, you can have them anywhere and students won't see them. So you can play around with outcomes in any course, in any location, and it doesn't have any effect, negative or positive, on the course or location that you put them. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to it. So we're once we have the brief overview, then we'll take a look at the output first, because I think it's important that you see what it's capable of before we get into how it works and how to actually do the outcomes. So we'll look at the data that Canvas can generate and how you can use that for different purposes. And then we're going to do some hands-on activities. And as I'm demonstrating this stuff, feel free to do it. In any course, you can do also, we can look at it at the sub-account level, which I'll show you how to do as well. And you can build rubrics at the sub-account level. We'll actually build a couple of rubrics. And we'll also look at how you can attach that to assignment and what it looks like in the gradebook. And we'll also take a look very briefly today at the new feature that was just turned on in December, which is the Learning Mastery Gradebook View. So it's a nice little feature, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into that. Right. Now, I'm very relaxed on how I train, so at any time you have a question, just type up. It's not formal, you don't have to wait till the end, you don't have to raise your hand, just shout it out, okay? And there'll be hopefully a little time for Q&A at the end, additional Q&A. Okay. Any questions on what we're going to cover today? So hopefully you're all here for this purpose to look at outcomes. All right. Now, for those of you who are online, I do have Jamie Thompson monitoring chat to help me, because I get a little animated and walking around. So those of you who are online, you absolutely can post your questions in chat. You can also unmute your mic and just ask out loud if you like, whichever you prefer. So let's talk a little bit about the purpose of outcomes. Okay. Outcomes has been around for a while. It is a Canvas feature, and it was originally designed to track student learning outcomes in your course. But we can do so much more with it. It can be used for assessment purposes. You can identify learning deficits and strengths, and you can track student data. And the nice thing about this is anytime you are looking at an assignment that has an artifact, and when I say an artifact, it can be a discussion, it can be a test question, it can be an assignment, project, anything they upload to Canvas is basically stored in perpetuity. Now, right now, we have not downloaded anything out of Canvas, so we've got everything out there from the time we moved to Canvas. We will be offloading that a couple of years back, but we can still access it. Okay. Now, for assessment purposes, we can absolutely use that student data for university accreditation. And we do have Elise here. Elise, if you can raise your hand big and high, from our Office of Assessment and
Institutional Effectiveness Evaluation.
Thank you, our assessment person here, to kind of answer any questions you may have specifically about SACS reporting and whatnot there. Okay. You can also use it for program accreditation. I have worked, I'm relatively new at Texas A&M, even though I've been in the system for a while. I started at Tarleton, done a little work with Corpus Christi, and I just moved from Prairie View A&M to here and I started here in June. And at both Tarleton and Prairie View, I helped them institute outcomes. At Prairie View, they were using it for all of their assessment purposes for both SACS, AACSB, and ABET. AACSB are gentlemen over here in business, I'm sure very familiar with that. And if we have anyone from engineering, that's their ABET is their outside accreditation agency. And there are many others. Those are just some examples that I personally worked with. Okay. So you can also, again, like I said, anything that's uploaded to Canvas, you have that evidence for your accreditation. Any kind of student artifact, anything they upload or anything they respond to is always stored in Canvas. So you have that evidence for your accreditors. Now, here are the different criteria that help you identify learning deficits. So you can use it not just for accreditation and assessment, but you can also use it for program improvement. So you can actually compare student data in a single course section. You can basically aggregate data across multiple sections of a course, across an entire program, the department, and even across a college. So it really can be used for many different purposes. And when you have all that data, you can actually identify learning deficits and strengths from all of your courses, again, at any one of those levels in that first little graphic at the top.
Kelly, what level of permissions do you have to be able to make these comparisons?
You don't. What I mean by that is you do have to be a Canvas administrator to run the reports. But once the reports are run, we just hand it off to you. And the output is a CSV file. So you can build any kind of, and I'll show you some examples. Pivot charts, pivot tables that allow you to look at whatever data you want. So anything you identify as an outcome can be tracked and compared in those different levels.
So the idea would be that here, you might submit a request to the learning support team. They would run a report and send it to us, and then we could do our analysis.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I will show you some examples of the output just in that. Great question. Any other questions? Okay. Now, how it extracts student data is you can include this data, and what I mean by that is how you set it up. So you can set up, you have to use a rubric, and that's why we're going to cover rubrics a little bit today, because an outcome is basically considered one criterion on that rubric. Okay? And what you can do is you can have separate faculty grading criteria than the outcomes. And you combine them into one rubric, and you can do the assessment and the grading all at the same time. It's once and done. And what happens is when you identify it as an outcome, you can include it in the student's course grade, or you can not include it in course grade, and it will track those outcomes separately if you'd like. You have that much flexibility in it as you're setting them up. Okay.
So the students see those?
Yes.
Or-
Well,
they would see
what
both, or
happens?
you would have,
Go ahead.
again, I'm back to permissions,
That's okay.
who sees what,
Mhm.
but also then it sounds like then the faculty member or instructor would become the person doing the assessment issues, right? So the assessment of the class, but as well as our accreditation.
You can also have, the roles that you want, if you want other faculty to assess those, you can enroll them class as an anonymous grader. You can, as just a grader, the different roles, and
Great.
our LMS team is here as well. Part of our LMS team here can help with those roles that can give access to the grade. You can actually, anonymous grader, then they don't see the student names, but they see their artifacts. But there's different things you can do if you want more than just the faculty of record to assess it. Because you can set it up, like I said, in the course, and you can use this for your face-to-face courses as well. Just keep in mind, you're going to have to upload that artifact to Canvas. Okay, so it's not just limited to your online courses, but it's limited to the data stored in Canvas. Did that answer your question, Sean?
Oh, yeah, totally.
As I said, those artifacts are stored in Canvas and can be provided as evidence. And the outcome, the reports that Canvas generates, is a simple CSV file with all that data. So you can build all sorts of reports in Excel, charts, pivot tables, whatever you want that can best represent the data visually if you want. or however you want to sort it out and filter it, okay? And like I said, when you build a rubric, your course grading and assessment can be done all at once. Now, when I implemented this at PV, they actually had two separate systems and kind of like us, but this is one way that you could provide an additional data set to Elisa's group for accreditation. Now, the benefit that faculty at PV liked was the fact it's once and done. They don't have two separate systems for the assessment. They use the output from Canvas. They just build those charts and then send it off to the assessment team. That can be done here as well. Now, here's an example of what the Learning Mastery Gradebook is. Now, as you can see, I've got that little triangle off the left because this is actual data, so I just covered up the students' names. This is actually from Biomedical Sciences. They did a small pilot this fall, so this is actual data that you're looking at. So again, I just covered up the student's name, so we're not violating FERPA. Okay? And you can customize this at the sub-account level, so you can have a different grading scale. So this is set up on the right, you'll see that color-coded. They set theirs up to the ABET accreditation. I don't know what ABET stands for, but I know it's for engineering. And those are the actual criteria on the 0 to 4-point scale: exemplary, satisfactory, developing, unsatisfactory, and not observed. You can set that at the sub-account level for anything you want. But when you set it at the sub-account level, it's for everyone in that sub-account level. So there's one limitation in that you can't have multiple grading scores for different courses in the same sub-account. It has to be the same one. That is a limitation of Canvas. Okay. And this is a real brief look at some actual data from the outcomes report. The one you see, and I'll get in a little more detail in just a second, where you see in the upper left is the actual output from Canvas, the outcomes report. On the right is just a pivot table and a pivot chart, and on the bottom is a pivot table built from that data. So you can see visual representation of how your students are doing based on the criteria that you set. And once you build this, this is the type of data that your accreditors love. So this is the kind of thing that goes to the assessment team and that they can, again, use to evaluate your student outcomes. Okay. And that's basically, in a nutshell, what the outcomes do. Is there any questions about the overview?
Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint slide?
Sure.
Some point, not right now, obviously, but.
No problem. Make myself a note so I don't forget. All right, let's take a look now at the actual output, so you can see the benefits of what it does. And this is actual data again. Now, this happens to be from Prairie with their permission. They allow me to use this for demonstration purposes because they've been doing it now for, this is their third year, I believe. And they use it for their core assessment, for all their core classes, for ABET, and they're just starting with AACSB. So this is what the output from Canvas looks like. And again, I did scrub the data. So that first column, I just changed the actual student names to student names. So we're not violating FERPA. That was the one requirement they asked of me if I'm going to share this data. So what you see is, and across the top, we'll look at it in a little more detail, but it is all the different data that's pulled directly from Canvas that you can use to chart, that you can use to build pivot tables and whatnot. So what happens is you get the entire data for your sub-account or whatever you want, which we can run very easily and relatively quickly. So that's via request to our LMS team. And guys, I'll show you how to do that. No problem. And it usually turnaround time in that is relatively quick. So by that, I would say you could probably run the actual report within 2 to 3 days. And it doesn't take long to run. It just depends on how busy our LMS team is. I can also run those reports for you. So in the event that, you know, they're busy or something, they can always pass it on to me and I can run it for you as well. Okay. Now, what you get from them is you can see the student name in that first column. So you can actually drill down by student if you want to see if one specific student is doing on all these student learning outcomes. What you see in the second column here, and this is whatever the assessment title is, whatever the instructor calls it. So you don't have to have the same, if you want to give your faculty that freedom their academic freedom, they can call the assessment whatever they want. Because it really doesn't matter the title because it's going to be listed here. Okay, what I mean by that is, you know that in this one, it's the lifelong learning assignment 1 and 2. That's what they called it in the course. In the next column here, in column C, it tells you what the assessment type is, whether it would be a discussion, an assignment, an exam, whatever you set that up in Canvas, that's what's going to pull there. It's also going to give you the submission date by the student. Over here. Sorry. When the student submitted it, the submission score, that is what the faculty graded it for the course, not necessarily outcomes. You can use the outcomes for the course grade. You don't have to. It just depends on how you set it up. So this gives you the score that they got in the course for this particular assessment. Okay. Here is the actual outcome name. Basically, if you have a rubric, a hard copy rubric that you use for assessment, whatever you call it, this is what would show up here. For ABET, it would come up as Student Learning Outcome 1 with the full title. Okay. The next thing it would tell you is section. So their coding is a little bit different than ours. So it looks a little bit different, but you can't tell it's all 23. This happens to be mechanical engineering. The assignment URL, so in the event you want to go actually to that assignment and take a look at it, there's a link to it. As well as what they call the learning outcome friendly name, which you can set that up to be anything you want. And basically what we did at PV is we used the full, where the origination of it. So you can see here, this is ABET. This was their EAC, Learning Outcome 7, and it just repeats it again. Same thing you had over there. Okay. So the outcome name and the outcome friendly name, they can be the same if you want, they can be slightly different. Here we're using it here at Texas A&M, we're going to use the originating department and then the name of the outcome for the friendly name. Now the next column that you see, this is on the learning outcome points possible. That's the scale set for this particular sub-account. This is on a 0 to 4 scale, 4 of course being the highest. The next one is what you set the mastery score at. And you can set that at the department level or the sub-account level. And that basically means what's the minimum score you want to set where that student is basically, you consider that mastery of that student learning outcome or whatever that the outcome, whatever it is that you're assessing. Okay. Now, what you'll see is the learning outcome master tells you how many are, if there are multiple ones in that same course or that same assignment, because one assignment can cover multiple outcomes. Then this is just the full name of the learning outcome rating that they got, the score that the assessment person or whoever assessed that gave them. Ratings point is usually the same. And then you have the, in Canvas, we do outcome groups. So we can actually set it up so you could put all of the, in this case, ABET EAC outcomes were in one group. The ABET engineering outcomes were all in a different group. We had one for core that was in its own subgroup or group title. That's just how you organize it, okay? And of course, the last one is the sub-account name. Okay?
Kelly, it appears that
Sure.
rows 17, 20, and 21, if you go back across, those were non-submissions. So I'm assuming they were graded automatically 0 on the
You can set it up,
Canvas grading. Does
Yeah.
that also cascade to the outcomes grading?
yes. But you have to assign it, but you have to set up, you either have to manually score it as a 0, or you have to tell it as Canvas, you know how you can set it up to give zeros for non-submissions.
So just to clarify, the learning outcome are scored manually as well. It's Canvas does not, do you set those parameters and it scores for
Yes.
you? Yes,
Because
sir.
think about it, grading is very subjective.
Sure.
So yes, it's based on the how the faculty grades it, yes.
But could you set up, right, so if you want to use a multiple choice question, for example, not the best one from assessment standpoint, could you set that up to then be automatically graded?
Yes, absolutely. Just like you can, the quiz features that you have in Canvas, those don't change. The only caveat with that, for those points and those questions, you would want to make it the same points as the scale that you have for your outcomes.
So you could effectively have one question that has could have one scale for what the class assignment grade is, and a different scale. So for
You
example.
can't have a different one. It would, you have to set up that question with the grading scale you have for the sub-account, for it to pull correctly into the outcomes reports. I can't, the only reason I said I came across that,
So, I mean, that's probably a specialized case that someone might say,
yes,
for our learning assurance accreditation, we might use a choice question.
exactly. And you can type, but the only thing with outcomes is you have to use new quizzes. You cannot use classic quizzes. Classic quizzes does not allow you to align to.
All right, let's just leave it.
I'm not, I totally understand that, and I'm not saying that new quizzes is perfect, because we know there's issues with new quizzes. It's just the caveat, outcomes cannot be aligned to classic quizzes at this time.
So the outcome, so the assignments don't have to have a rubric attached to them necessarily, they can be.
They do have to have.
They do have. a-
Yes,
Okay,
because that's how you will attach the outcome to the assignment.
didn't want to get confused, okay, so there have to be a rubric attached.
Yes.
Okay,
And I found, Sean, that it's more successful, I should say, or more direct if you're looking at projects and whatnot like that, because you need to have a lot more control over, again, individual points. If you want to put 10 points for the course grade, but only on the 4-point grading scale for assessment, you can do that.
So, but, for example, a quiz could be used if you want, if you have an essay type question.
Sure.
Particular, which might be more appropriate from an insurance of learning standpoint.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Now, what you can also do is you'll notice, and I know it's kind of hard to see, across the top, bottom of the screen, there are all these different tabs. And what this allows you to do, and this is how we set up the data once we got it directly from Canvas. So this one, you'll notice at the bottom, this one is fall 23 and CED from mechanical engineering for them. Then you can also aggregate across courses individually. But what this allows you to do, the first tab here is what we call data analysis for them. And this is just the pivot tables built from this data. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see all of it. And then I'll zoom in so you can see what we built. So what you see in that first upper left corner, and I know it's kind of small, but I'll zoom out so you can actually see it, what it represents for. There are 3 pivot tables and 1 pivot chart for every one of this. This is for the entire department. So this is for all the student outcomes for mechanical engineering for that semester. So if you look at, and I'll zoom in now that you can see them, so it makes a little more sense. The first one here, and I know it's still kind of small because that long column A, basically. This is just a pivot table that allowed us to look at averages. They use averages for ABET. I'm not saying that's correct or not correct, but that's the system they use. Some prefer to use the high and low scores. It's, again, whatever you want to do with your accreditors. They used averages at PV. And what they did is you can see here, by each one of the student learning outcomes for ABET EAC, there are 7 of them. Okay. For ABET EAC 1, which lists out that student learning outcome, how many students, the column B is the average, and column C is the number of students, and you can see the detail of how many students scored and the average, lack of proficiency on a 0 on ABET outcome 1. I've got a 1, got a 2, 3, and 4 for every one of those outcomes. And this is just a basic pivot table in Excel. Over here is another way to look. It's the same data. This is just the overall averages looked at a small snapshot of that detail on the left. So that top pivot table is basically just a quick overview of each one of the 7, just the averages and the student total number of students for that outcome rating and how it calculated that. The next one is just strictly counts by students. So in the middle of this screen here, you can see all 7 outcomes. Whoops, sorry, too far. So you can see literally, again, how many did each score for each one of those learning outcomes for ABET. And then, of course, this is just a pivot chart of that same data. So you can, a nice little visual that you can see basically how your students are doing. The dark blue is a 4. I know the chart's kind of small. 1 is the orange. 2 is a gray. 3 is yellow. 4 is that blue. And then there's a blank option, which is kind of a purple blue there. But it allows you to see, just by looking at our PV for mechanical engineering, we're pretty much scoring very high on, outcomes 2 through 7, it's just number 1 that looks like needs a little work. Now, with that same data, I basically built for them. I broke out the data by section, so by course, I should say. So this was the data for Mechanical Engineering 3101. This is the data for just that course across multiple sections. Same thing, I took that same data and just built some pivot charts. So in this one, they were only measuring ABET outcome 7. So the same data from all sections of Mechanical Engineering 3101. Same thing across all the bottom. It's a raw data for each one of the courses with multiple sections, and then a data analysis basically pivot tables for the same data.
You said that you built this table, so Canvas doesn't build this table.
Okay, Canvas does not build a table, it only gives you the CSV file.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to show anyone, if you're not familiar with Excel, how to build pivot tables and charts. It's not really hard, so I can basically show you if anyone needs help. Any questions on what the outcome looks like? The output looks like, I should say. Now, I sent this to their department, their program directors, they basically just copied and pasted this right into reports they gave to ABET as well as their assessment team for the college for SACS, and they loved it. Now, keep in mind, this is only the data stored in Canvas, so there's additional data from face-to-face courses that they may need to add to this data if they did not, report it and assess it in Canvas. But we do here at Texas A&M as well as PV, we create a shell for every course. So if you want to do assessment in Canvas to track that data, for those of your faculty who teach face-to-face, if they only want to upload or do the assessment in Canvas for that particular assignment or an exam, they can. And that's what they did at PV for those who taught fully face-to-face, didn't teach any online classes at all. They only had them do that one assessed assignment in Canvas. Any questions? Trying to get an idea of the value of outcomes. All right, well, let's see how we actually have to do this. So if you will, and again, you can do this with me if you will. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and log into Canvas. So if you haven't already done so, please do so.
Kelly, quick question.
Sir.
We get a request to generate the CSV file, we send it. What would be the best way to send that? Because the data is obviously purpose sensitive. The current ticketing system allows anyone to view the ticket. So how did you send those in the past when you received those requests?
I basically had a folder in OneDrive for the different departments and gave them access to it and said I put it out in OneDrive. That way it's at least behind our firewall and they had to log in.
Okay.
We could use FileX.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever, any way you want, we can set that up. Absolutely.
There's more steps.
True. Okay, I'm gonna log in both as faculty, that's why I have a better point, which is good. Okay, I'm also gonna log in as my administrator so you can see the difference. Now, the access that you'll have is role-based, so some of you remember our test.
For your admin,
Yes.
canvas.tama.edu.
I need to go into the test environment. I have some things set up in there that will make more sense. Thank you. Should ask my guys back here, didn't we? Tamu? Yes?
So just.
No, it's Texas A&M.test.instructure.com.
That's before instructor.
You can tell those of us who frequently go to that.
I'm horrible with what. Oh.
Yeah, there you
So there is one thing you should be aware of within Canvas. For it to add the data to aggregate correctly, you have to set up your outcomes in the hierarchy of the structure of how Canvas set up. What I mean by that is you have to add it first at the highest level sub-account that you have access to. So for me, of course, that would be for all Texas A&M. For those of you who are academic liaisons and course designers for different colleges, you probably have access to your college sub-account, but not higher. So you have to add, and if you don't, again, we can work around that, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So this is what it looks like from. I'll show you the sub-account structure. So if you've never seen this before, I didn't show it to you, okay? No, I'm joking. Our LMS team in the back will have seen this. So this is actually the account structure for our entire Canvas account. So you see that we have it set up not just for colleges, but some different areas as well. So you see there's a sub-account for administration. And it looks kind of like a organizational chart, in that it's indented into the whole sub-accounts. So you can go very deep in Canvas. You can set up an account, a sub-account with another sub-account in it, with another sub-account in it, and so forth. So there's many, the hierarchy does matter, okay? So if I wanted to do assessment for the entire university, I would have to make sure that it's at the root account level, the highest possible level, which would be Texas A&M University. So then from there, I would then have to add it to each individual college and then the sub-accounts within them, okay? That's the only caveat, because if you don't, the data will not aggregate correctly, okay? So you want to go to the highest sub-account first. So if you're in, let's see here. Sean, give me one of the departments in your college. Anyone? Account. Okay. You wanted to get at your outcomes in accounting, you'd have to first add it to Mays College of Bay School of Business, then accounting, and then to the course. You don't want to go directly to the course, because then all it's going to do is pull the data out of that section. It will not aggregate across other sections, okay? You can, and a limit of Canvas, you can't pull it up to sub-account. You can't start at a section or course and then try to add it back to the department level, the college level, and the university level. That's a limitation of Canvas. Sorry, don't kill the messenger, okay? So you want to start it at the highest level that you can.
So are you saying then that the university level administration should be doing all the outcomes,
Not necessarily.
setting them up? Because otherwise you can't aggregate to the university level, which is part of the benefit of using outcomes.
Well, I still can, but it's just a little more manual work. It means I have to run reports at each one of the sub-account levels, combine them, and we do that. And the reason you don't want to do that is because not all, like, especially for outside accreditation, different rating scales. So you'd be kind of comparing apples and oranges. So if you have a 10-point rating scale for ABET and you have a 5-point rating scale for AACSB, they're not going to be on the same rating scale, so the data's going to look good. And it would be hard to aggregate it across the university. And to be honest with you, I don't see a reason that we would need to do that across the university, unless you want to do it for the core. And most of the core is in arts and sciences, so we could do that at arts and sciences level. Does that make sense? Okay. Great question. Though. All right, so as you can see now, this is the sub-account level. And when I go to outcomes here, I did set up the ones for College of Engineering. And one of the reasons I added these at the root level here is because we were doing a pilot for it. So I could also run a report in the event that multiple sub-accounts wanted to use the College of Engineering's outcomes. Not that they will, because we haven't set up for ABET specifically. But the chevron here, if
But
I
that makes
click,
it easier if, for example, they wanted to apply their ABET standards to a math class, which is required part of your engineering curriculum.
exactly,
They can figure it out.
correct, yes, sir. Okay. Now, once I have this, you know, I can put in, and this is some things here, again, I can add it at any level that I want. And again, until I push it out to the course and build a rubric, add it to an assignment, no one ever sees it. So you can do all the practice you want with outcomes at any point in time, anywhere on the sub-account structure. Okay, so let's go down to engineering and take a look at a little more detail of this. And as you can see, the sub-account structure is primarily set up by your departments, with a few caveats there. Okay. So I'm going to go to the College of Engineering sub-account. And I'm going to look at the outcomes here. So now, as you can see, each one of those indentations, if you will, is called a group. It's basically a folder structure. That's really all it is behind the scenes. So when you look at this, what you're seeing here is, yes, there's a group, an outcome group called College of Engineering. There's another group called ABET, Student Learning Outcomes, and another one here that says ENGR. Okay. I open the chevron here. On the right, I see all the ABET Student Learning Outcomes. So again, it's just part of the structure within Canvas. And here are the ones that are engineering if I wanted to add. These were just, as you can see, these were practice. So you can see they don't really make names, course full name and then LO objective. So you can see there that you can practice with all that you want. And it, again, it's not gonna hurt anything because it's behind the scenes. Okay. So here are all the ABET learning outcomes. As you can see here, this one is the ABET, the non-EAC. I showed you EAC from Prairie View. This is just a regular ABET outcomes. Okay. And if I look over here on the right, this is each one of the individual ones. If I click on the chevron here, it shows me the full student learning outcome criteria, I should say. Okay. Now, to add a student learning, an outcome, again, it doesn't have to be student learning, right? Anything you identify as an outcome, anything you want to assess or collect data on. You can create a group over here. So if you're in your account, go ahead and just create a new group. Click the new create new group button, or whatever you want. I'll call this one demonstration. Okay, and then you may have to pull this slider bar open to see the plus or the X or the check mark. So that does move. To add it, you have to click on the check mark. And it does list them alphabetically in your groups. So you see that I have demonstration right here between ABET and engineering. Now to add my outcomes, I click on that one, and then over on the right, I'm gonna have to move my Zoom window a little bit. You will sometimes get a pop-out window. And the pop-out window is the help feature for outcomes. And as I'm sure you know, when you use a lot of the features, I've got it turned off on mine. It'll pop-up window on the right will pop out, and it'll give you links to the Canvas community, to the Canvas guides that give you step-by-step instructions as well. Now, what I'm showing you is also in the handout that I put over there for adding outcomes to Canvas. But to add one, you simply click up here, you can close that little pop-up window and then click create. Now, to add them, you have a name and a friendly name. The name, I usually use whatever the actual name is of that accreditation organization or whatever the assessment office wants to basically track or collect data on. You can call it whatever you want. So I have seen this used not just for accreditation assessment, but also to look at a common final. They wanted to look at some student learning outcomes for a common final across multiple sections of chemistry. So they use this for that. So they just called it chemistry, I forget what they call it. I think it's chemistry outcome 10 or something like that. You can, again, whatever naming acronym you want is fine, because it just needs to make sense to your department. It doesn't have to make sense to me or to anyone else in the university. So for this one, I'll just call this demo outcome 1. Now the friendly name, and this is just helpful if you put if you would, the naming convention that we're using here. And again, you can set up your own in your sub-account if you want. It does not have to be. To be able to track it back to whoever gave it to me or basically originated it, I've been putting in the point of origination. So for ABET, I just put in engineering and then the ABET outcome number. ABET outcome number. You can call it whatever you want. So I'm just going to call this training session 1-7, demo outcome 1.
These are the names that are in the CSV export. That we
Yes,
have
this
left.
will appear on the report. Yes, sir. Thank you. Now, here is another caveat that I want to forewarn you about outcomes. Again, outcomes is not perfect, but nothing is, right? In the world, there's no perfect LMS either. What I recommend here for the description is basically the criteria for the highest rubric rating. Okay. The reason for that is in outcomes, you do not get the full ratings description on your outcome because it varies from assignment to assignment, test to test, project to project. So it's just best practices if you want to enter the highest rating criteria and description here. So for this one, let's see, I'll say this is a paper and I'll say that I'm going to assess the thesis. I'll say thesis is well developed, organized, and thorough. Now, this particular box, I don't know the character limit on that, but you can get very, very detailed and put in lots and lots of information in there. Now, I will forewarn you though, the more information you put here in the rubrics, it's going to make that column really, that row really tall. Okay. So, but you may need that. Okay. And again, for right now, I'm just going to put it down. Okay. Now you can put in a friendly description, but the friendly description, you'll see it says for parent student display is primarily meant for the K-12 version of Canvas. It really doesn't show up on our stuff that we have. So I would just leave that blank. And then if you scroll down, you can see the group that you're putting it in. I'm going to close my little test characterization here, and then you click create. There you go. It should be right there.
Mine on the way too.
1 second, I'm going to refresh. If you refresh your browser, it'll pop up. I've had that happen before. And you'll basically see it on the right. Okay. I'm going to add 2 more just for practice today. So if you will, go ahead and add another 1 or 2 and make sure you have the group that you want selected in that first column under outcome group. So I'm going to put it here in my demo. I'm going to call this one click create. And this is going to be my demo outcome 2.
Kelly, for clarification,
Yes.
name or friendly name, which one shows up in the CSV? They both do.
Good. The name comes up first, and the friendly name comes over to the about 4 or 5 columns over to the right. So they both do appear on that outcomes report. Thank you. Sure. Great question. And I'm just going to say training session. And for this one, again, I'm just going to type in blah, blah, blah. Again, you want to put in what you would for the highest rating for that particular criteria. Click Create. Browser so you can see it. I'm going to do just one more. Sometimes, yes. Yeah. And for this one, I'll say. Now, one of the things about Canvas outcomes is primarily since was originally designed for assessment, again, assessing student learning outcomes. Once you've used it, you can never delete it. And again, because you don't really want to, you want that archival data. So just keep that in mind. So if you make it, you can't edit it so you have a different name or whatever, but you can't delete it once you've used it.
That's why it's good to practice in the test.
Yes. Yes, sir. And that's a great point, Sean. Great point.
Then those guys can reset it.
Yes, absolutely. So without a doubt, yes, okay. So now that I have my three here, again, just demo outcome 1, 2, and 3. Again, call them whatever you want, what's purposeful for you or the purpose you want to use it for. Okay. Now, once I have this built, again, once I have it built once, I can just add it to the other ones. It's not like I have to re-add them at every hierarchy in the structure. I just have to build them at the highest level. And if by chance you only have access to a department as opposed to a college, you need them added at the college, send them to me and I'll be happy to add them at that level for you. Okay. Okay, so now once I've added to the highest level in this particular demonstration, which right now I'm in the College of Engineering, I go to sub-accounts. I will see just the account structure for College of Engineering. If I want to add it to multiple accounts, unfortunately, I have to do it one at a time, one sub-account at a time. But I'm going to go ahead and add this to aerospace engineering, this particular department. So I select that department, and up at the top, you'll see the breadcrumbs. So you can see where I am in the sub-account structure.
Kelly?
Yes.
And maybe this needs to be redirected to the support team. With the recent creation of the college manager, department manager, type of roles. So for example, right now, I don't think anyone here other than you and the support team can see sub-accounts.
Correct.
But now there are sub-accounts under Mays Business School,
Yes, sir.
but I can only see Mays.
Gotcha.
Can we get the permissions added so that I could see those department level sub-accounts?
That's a good question, and we have to look at the roles to see what they'll have access to, and then if there's not a role for that, we'll have to go through the whole
Right.
approval process.
Well, so I'm just saying, just add it to, for example, the school manager role. Activate the permission. I don't know what other permissions are associated with it. So that when I'm logged in at the Mays Business School level, I can see the sub-accounts below Mays
Right.
Business School. I can't see above, but I can only see
Right.
below.
Yes,
So
sir.
perhaps you all know that, maybe you can only have sub-accounts with access at the root level, looking all the way down.
Yes,
That's gonna be my guess, because
Yeah.
Canvas tends to do things in an odd way like that.
yes, they do.
I agree that that would be fabulous. I was thinking the same thing when I saw her sub-account on the side. I don't see anything with the 19 departments in our compliance. I only see the listing of courses. So it would be
Yes.
fabulous to be able to see.
And that has
Sub-accounts.
come up, we looked at it, I'm glad you brought that up, because Patty Luna is doing some things in the School of Public Health already with outcomes, and they're piloting some stuff this semester. We can't do that because for some reason, it turns on something else that it's tied to, that shouldn't be tied to, they won't do that. So I'm working with Patty, she's adding them at the college level, and then I'm adding it to all the sub-account levels for her. So it may be something we need to do for you guys as well.
Well, that would be everybody.
Yes,
If
yes,
we're activating,
Yes.
if the pathway is going down, activating outcomes, which it seems to be, which at least from my perspective, I would support. Right, it's great that we have these new school manager, department manager roles.
Right.
Because that, for example, Mike, who is our assistant dean for graduate programs, who does our assurance of learning stuff for graduate programs.
Mhm.
It'd be great if he's added as a school manager so that he can start doing some of these things in addition to me, right?
Right.
It doesn't all have to come to my office.
We can definitely look
Um,
at
I don't
So
like
we-
waiting on Sean.
So, we-
Yeah,
right, so we have these new roles, which is
Right.
great, and I know it's been a 3-year process to get those
Yes.
created, or maybe 2 years. So it'd be great if the permissions would cascade, but I'm gonna guess, I think I saw CJ nodding, I'm gonna guess that those are root level access only roles.
I'm gonna have to go back and double check, but I'm
Permissions.
almost certain they're only level access.
Yeah, let's,
So
we
I'll
can
come to you,
revisit that.
we'll create them and then send you the email.
And I can just add it to whatever sub-account you want. That way you can enter them again, whatever structure you want, because to me, it doesn't matter what they are, I can put them wherever. Because once they're in the sub-account, then of course, the sub-account
And,
that has.
and by the way, thank you, Kim, for stepping up and engaging, so that I'm not the only person
No, yes,
asking
yes,
questions.
absolutely, yes.
I sound awful, so I'm trying not to talk about my apologies.
No worries.
But I agree with Sean.
But in the event that you have that same issue again, you can see your college level or your main sub-account, but you can't see any additional sub-accounts. You added the account you have, I can add them to any sub-accounts for you from there in the sub-account structure. Now, and for me to do that, as you can see right here, I can see the breadcrumbs here. I'm in the Texas A&M College of Engineering, Aerospace Engineering. sub-account. So to add those to them, I go to outcomes. And you can see I've already added the AVIC student learning outcomes here, but to add additional ones, now all I have to do is go up here and click find. Now, when I do that, this allows me to see whatever I have access to. So if I ignore state standards, that's basically for K to 12. And I don't think we have anything in there anyway. No, we don't. If I go to account standards, then I can see what I have access to. So it's not, you will not most likely see Texas A&M University. You will probably see College of Engineering, whatever college you're from. And then when I click on that chevron, it opens up and I can just click demonstration. And then I can put add all outcomes, or I can just add whatever you're assessing. So if you have a list of outcomes for an outside accreditor, but your Department of Accounting is only doing 3 of those outcomes, you don't have to put all 10 or whatever you have. You only have to put in the 3 that apply to the accounting department.
All of our accounting outcomes are blah, blah, blah.
I'm gonna go ahead and add all outcomes here.
ADC is research.
And you can see it's spinning.
Just
And I'm gonna get a little message at the top, as you can see, all outcomes from demonstration, which have been successfully launched. So now that I've added them to that sub-account, now I have to, of course, add them to the course that I want to add it to. So that's gonna, if you're using it for, again, outside accreditation, you may not assess every single outcome in every single class every semester. You usually have a schedule. And I'm most familiar with AVIC, that's why I'm using them as an example. There are several that our College of Engineering only does in the fall semester. They don't do fall and spring. They only do fall, and they do 1, 3, and 5, and in the spring they do 2, 4, and 6. So you can actually, you can either add them all to the course, or you can just do the ones you're assessing. You have that control. Okay. So now I'm going to go back here. My backup. I'm still in that sub-account, but now I can see all the courses. So if I want to add it to the courses, and this is just in the engineering, aerospace engineering sub-account that I'm in, let's say I want to add it to a particular course. I find that course and I can still limit it here. Let's look at something that's offered in the spring. And let's say I'm just going to use the first one up here, this 25 spring aero 1201 section 200. I just go into the course. And outcomes is usually near the bottom. When I click on outcomes, I'm going to add them by clicking, just like I did to the sub-accounts, I'm going to find. Now what's going to happen here is I'm going to see my sub-account. You may see Texas A&M, you may see the College of Engineering. I'm just gonna go to the lowest section in the account structure. And I'm gonna tell them which ones I want. So I'm gonna go to demonstration, and let's say I only want 2 of them. So I'm gonna click add over here for 1 and 2. So for this particular course, they're only doing 2 of my student outcomes this semester. And once they're in the course, if this is something you do every semester, you don't have to do this. It's automatically in the course. If they copy that forward, it's gonna automatically be there. So you really only have, if you're doing it every single semester,
How does
What's
that
it say?
happen?
it's hidden.
Because the course levels we're looking at are specific instances of a section, not specific instances of a course.
What I meant is that section, if you use that to copy forward.
Okay, I see. So if I'm going to go to last semester and copy the content of that course, either through the export process or the course copy process, then I will have those outcomes because they're already there.
Yes, sir. Yep, because it's just part of that section of the course.
What is it attached to? So normally when I copy, I don't do a copy everything. I'll do like just to choose content.
There's an option that says
So
outcome.
it will say outcomes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So now it's in that course.
And all this can be done without the faculty member needing to be bothered.
Correct. So now once you add it or someone adds it, you can just see that they're there. So at any time, you can always see what's already in the course just by clicking on outcomes. And you'll see right now, if I click on that little chevron, you'll see that just the 2, not all 3 of what I actually added. And you can always add more. And again, they'll stay in the course once it's been used that semester for 1 option. Once you use it once, it's locked basically, so you don't lose anything. But you can remove it if you, again, even though I've added it, so let's say I'm doing this assessment in the fall, but I'm not gonna be doing these in the spring, I can remove them. To remove them, and again, you're not removing any data, just the actual outcome. All you have to do is go over to these 3 little dots and click on remove. So let's say I added by accident, so I'll just remove that outcome. And you get the warning, are you sure you want to do this? And then just 2's left.
But okay, so that was removing the outcome, not deleting, so it's just taking away from associated with that course.
Yes, sir. And I'm, again, behind the scenes, so if I do that, or one of you all want to do it, however you want to handle that in college, you can do that without involving the faculty. Because some of them, as you know, they just want it done for them. They want them added to their course. And that's one less thing they have to worry about. So it's totally up to you how you want to do that. And I can work with anyone to help you customize it to work for you. Because what may work for engineering and ABET may not work for arts and sciences, may not work for, how that structure is set up, may not work for Maze. So I'm happy to work with any of you to help customize something that's going to work best for you and what you need it for.
Okay, so the demo outcomes that I just added,
Mhm.
even though I don't have the access to do the step where you said
Push it to-
add them to the sub account,
Yes, sir.
when I so I went to a course and when I select outcome,
It's there.
search for outcomes, I can expand.
Right.
So does that mean I don't need to come to you, or are
You
we
do
missing
need
a
to come to
step?
me,
Because
yeah,
you,
because what's gonna happen now is it will aggregate at the college level, but not at the department level. It's only gonna aggregate data at the lowest level in the hierarchy that you added sub-account wise.
So you needed to start with these first.
No, you can add them and then add what you want if you have an idea of the formatting, how you want to do it. Add it at the college level. Send me an email and say, I need this added to accounting and marketing and whatever sub-account.
And how is that outcome that you created tied to an assignment?
It's not that.
Okay.
We just made it available in the in the course.
So I have a question about, I'm interested in what Sean's doing. It's gonna be the same thing. If I create something on the art sci side, and someone sees it in their class and they can technically add it to their course, then what does that do wrong? I know it's just not aggregated, but what?
What
will it-
happens, they can still use it and they
Okay.
can still go through it. But what's gonna happen is it will only when I run the reports I can't log it, I can't run the reports at the sub-account level that course is in. I'll only see it in the reports from the college level.
But we still get all the same information?
Yes. But the benefit is putting it at the sub-account level is if you only want reports for accounting, or you only want it for geology. And it's not added, it won't appear.
Right.
And it won't aggregate across all those sections of that course.
What I'm thinking though is someone's going to see, if they're going to be looking at outcomes, they're gonna see something we've created before that was, let's say, aggregated for a different sub-account and not necessarily theirs, and then they'll wanna use it and then not
Yeah.
realize that for some reason it may not work like they think it's gonna work, so.
Yes.
Just kind of wondering how to make sure, they don't play with things that they don't, if it's
Honestly,
in there.
yes, and honestly, what I did is there were only a few people who pushed out the outcomes to the courses. It was myself and then someone within engineering that knew what they were
Right,
doing
okay.
to make sure they were in there. And that was based on
And I
the
may
schedule.
try to make that clear, so that
Yeah.
it have to work. Okay.
And basically, if they didn't see it in their course or whatever, they could always call me or that person, have the correct one. Great, any questions on that? Now we've got it in their course. Just because it's in their course doesn't mean squat. Well, I shouldn't say squat. It means that it's available for them to use, but nothing's happening. They're not collecting data, it's just in their course. Okay? Now to do that, what we want to do is now we have to use a rubric. Okay, and I know you may get some pushback from rubrics, maybe not from a college of ed, because we've been using rubrics for many years. But outside the College of Education, faculty sometimes don't trust rubrics. They don't like using rubrics, and I kind of understand that. My background, of course, is College of Education, so I'm pro rubrics. What I like personally about rubrics, whether you use it for assessment or not, it makes grading go so much faster. It's click, 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 done. Okay? So once you have it here, you now also have to build a rubric that uses an outcome. And there are two things you have to consider. First, when you're considering your rubric, do you want to do the course grade and assessment at the same time? Or do you want to just do assessment? Okay? It's totally up to your faculty. And again, it's just basically a matter of talking with them and seeing what they want to do. So for those who teach a fully face-to-face class, they're only going to do the assessment campus. They're not going to need to do the grade part, the course grade in there. Okay? So now we've got this in this particular course. Let's build a rubric. Now, what you may not be aware of with rubrics, and this is actually a relatively new feature. And when I say relatively new feature, I'd say about 2 years ago. You can actually build rubrics at your sub-account level and not put them in a course. So if you have a common rubric you want to use for any reason, it doesn't have to be just an assessment, you can build it at the sub-account level and everyone in that sub-account has access to it. They can pull it into their course and use it. So if you want to do a common rubric, so everybody's grading one assignment exactly the same way, you can do that. Where before about 2 years ago, you had to copy it from one course to another course if you wanted to use that. Okay? So what I'm going to do is you can build it in the course. That's totally okay. And we're going to do that first. So if you would, go ahead and click on rubrics wherever you are. Now, and again, you can practice with rubrics all you want, because until you attach them to an assignment, no one ever sees them. Okay. Now, once you attach them to the assignment, students and anyone who has in that course can see them. Okay. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to go back over now to the live.
So this is related, but different topic.
Yes, sir.
If I, as a faculty member, created rubrics at my account level, I wouldn't have to look at 4,000 rubrics all with the same name because I've used it in multiple courses.
Mhm.
Wow, you earned your dollars.
Oh,
right
thank
there.
you.
Everything I paid for tuition to attend this was worth it.
Okay, now I'm out of the test environment. I'm actually in the training. Okay. So I'm going to go here to show your computer. And please forgive me, this is when I taught it for you, so I apologize. So I know it's not maroon, their colors were purple. Okay. So basically, as you can see here, I'm gonna go to rubrics, and as you can see, I've used this for training here, so there are several here. And again, until you attach them to an assignment, you have thousands. You can have 5, you can have 20 million if you want, doesn't matter, okay? So you can practice building your rubrics even at the sub-account level if you want, until you get it exactly the way you want, okay? So basically, let's build a rubric, and this rubric is going to be for course grading and assessment purposes. So what we're going to do, and when you first go in, if you're new to rubrics, when you first go into rubrics, there's usually a pop-up window to the right. You can turn that off so it doesn't, I turn mine off, okay? And basically, it's links to the Canvas guides and Canvas community to show you how to build rubrics, okay? It's pretty intuitive, so you can close that window and just click plus add rubric. Now, I do want to forewarn you that there is a new feature in Canvas that we have turned down in test, but it's not ready yet. So we did not move forward with it yet. There's a new feature called enhanced rubrics. There's a lot of issues with it. So if you're working in test, it's going to look different than this. So I just wanted to forewarn you, those who work in test. Okay. So if you're building rubrics, go ahead and do it in the live environment, because like I said, no one sees them until you attach them to assignment. So you can actually do this in production environment, a live environment, and has math. Okay. So I'm actually in the live environment right now. Okay. So you've seen a paper rubric. This gives you a little bit of a template or guideline to start with. So right now the title is some rubric. You can change it to whatever you want. Okay. Now this title does not show up on any of the outcomes reports. So you can call it anything you want. The faculty that is using it, you can call it anything you want. You can call it assessment rubric, whatever you want. You can call it stupid rubric if you want. I don't care. Because again, it's not going to show up on any report, so it really doesn't matter what you call it. It needs to be meaningful to you or the faculty member of the course. Okay. So I'm just going to call this demo rubric 1. Now it kind of gets you started. So each particular, if you've seen a paper rubric before, each row in that rubric is called a criterion. Okay. So it gets you started with that first row or criterion. And under criterion, it says description of criterion. You can go ahead and click this little pencil. Okay. The pencil allows you to edit, and this is where you can add your criterion, each row of your rubric. So let's say, just for practice, you can do whatever you want. Think of an assignment you may have, or one that you've worked with faculty on, what their criteria are for grading. So let's say, I'm going to say this is a paper. And I'm going to go ahead, this will be graded on thesis first. Okay. Now, the long description you can use if you want. Most faculty don't. I use that for outcomes. Just again, when we were building outcomes, I put in the description of the highest rating there, so it would show up. You do not have to do this for faculty grading criteria. So they can grade, again, this is their academic freedom. They can grade any way they want. So as I build this rubric, the top portion is going to be for course grade, and the bottom portion is going to be for assessment purposes only. Okay. So I'm going to go with my long description here. I'm going to just click update criterion. Okay. So now you see that my criterion now says thesis. And by default, Canvas gives you 5 points. But you can change that to anything you want, because this is how your faculty grade. So go ahead and change it. Let's go ahead and you click on the little pencil where it says 5 points, full marks. And I'm going to change it. Let's say I'm going to make my thesis worth 20 points. My ratings title by default is full marks, but you can change that to be anything you want. I've seen exemplary, I've seen A, like A work, for the A grade work. I've seen fantastic, I've seen good, whatever you want, because again, this is how that faculty grades. So I'm going to use exemplary. Now here, spell. Now here, your rating description is required, okay? Because you're giving the students your expectation of what it takes to basically make an A for this criterion. So you don't want to just leave it blank, because they're still not going to know what it takes to make an A for this particular criterion. So I'm going to say thesis, again, like I did for that outcome, I'm going to say thesis is well developed, organized. I'm going to click update. So now you see it as my first rating option. for that criteria. I want to add a ratings for A, B, C, D, F for this particular criterion. You can, again, however you grade, you do not have to do A, B, C, D, F, okay? So for the second one, I'm gonna click on this little maroon circle with the plus sign, because that allows me to put a rating between my exemplary and no marks. By default, Canvas is gonna divide the remaining points in half. That's why I came up with 10 for me. So if you put in 10, it'll say 5 here, okay? I want this to be worth 15, so I'm gonna change the point value to 15. And it will remember what you have on that computer. Now, what I mean by that is you'll see when I click on rating, the one I just last used is showing up there. If I continue this on another computer, it's not gonna be saved there. But if you're adding it on the same computer, it will remember what your ratings titles are, and you can click in that box. I'm gonna call this one proficient. I've seen proficient, I've seen above average, I've seen B work, I've seen you name it, okay? Again, the ratings description, you want to be as a required field. You want to enter what it takes to make a B for this particular criteria. So for this one, I'm gonna say, this is based on my thesis again, I'm gonna say thesis is good. Development use a little one. Again, however they grade, I'm gonna click update. Now, you'll notice now I have those maroon circles between each one of my ratings. You can add them in any order you want. I'm gonna click on the one between proficient and no marks because I want to add basically a ratings for what would be the same as C work. I'm gonna make this, I don't want it to be half of the between my B work and MOR. So I'm gonna make this one with 10. I'm gonna call this one average. You could say acceptable, again, however you rate, whatever ratings title you want to use. Again, in your ratings description, that's a required field, so you want to put in there what your expectations of the student, get a C for this criterion. So I'm going to say thesis is average. Development needs work. Organization needs work. I'm just going to put that there. I want to add another ratings for D work. So I'm going to click on the maroon circle between average and no marks. And I'm going to leave this one at 5 points. And I'm going to call this one unsatisfactory. You could say D work, again, whatever you like. My ratings description again is required. So I'm going to say thesis is poor. Lacks everything.
See something different on this screen. It says
No problem. I don't have anything stored on tax year. Okay. Now, by default, the 0 points is no marks, but you could change that, or you could leave it at whatever you want to do. I have changed that before, and I'm going to edit it. So everything in there is editable, not edible, editable. So I'm just going to say, for this one, I'll just say F. Work is extremely poor or no submission. Again, whatever you want. Now, you would continue to add each criterion from how you grade for the course. So right now, again, I'm just going to save time. I'm not going to add additional criterion for how I grade. I'm just going to pretend that my assignment, I only grade on pieces. Okay. But again, to add another criterion, you simply click on the plus criterion button. Okay. I'll show you what it looks like here in the fact that you can duplicate one that you've already created on this rubric and then just edit it. So if it's really, really close, it's already typed in. Okay. Or you could just click on new criterion, whichever you prefer. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and click off of that. But again, you continue to add criterion for how you grade in the course. Okay. Now to add the assessment piece, it's a little different, okay? Instead of clicking on plus criterion, we're gonna click on find outcome. Now, what you'll see here is basically the group that's in this course. Okay, now I added the demo in the test environment. I did not add it here. Okay. I did not push it down. No, I did not. Okay, so if there were multiple groups, you'd see those in that, actually in the first column, you see. No, I'm sorry, yeah, you see what's pushed out to that course for outcomes, okay? If there are multiple like groups that you see there, you click once and the second column would be in the individual outcomes. And when you click on the outcome in the second column, in this big one, you'd see a preview of that particular outcome. And then at the bottom, you would click import. So go ahead and do that if you would.
Is it one outcome per rubric or per rubric dimension?
Per criteria. Yes, so if you're assessing more than one outcome, you're gonna add them one at a time, okay? Now, once you've got that done, you're gonna click create rubric. And you should see it, and when you add an outcome, it's going to have a little target symbol next to it. That's the, that indicates that it's an outcome. Let me see about that one. That in my test environment, and that's what happens when I have multiple environments.
So whenever I went into the outcomes on the actual live courses, I noticed that one of the faculty members has already, like, has their name and then something they've done. Is that because I'm I'm in the administrative account, so I can see their information?
No, when you're in that particular course, you can see all the rubrics that are in that course.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't matter if you're the instructor, it doesn't matter, I mean,
I was looking at the outcome groups and I noticed that.
and yeah, they're both their own. Now, when it, and a faculty member can do that, but what'll happen is it will not aggregate cross sections. It's
Right.
only gonna put the outcomes data from that course section only.
But am I able to see her outcome because I'm at the administrative level?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay. So I'm trying to think the easiest way to do that, so I can show you what yours will look like. I can't do it in test because we have an enhanced rubrics turned on and they look very different. Or here. Actually, one second here. Tonight comes down into the second. We'll be switching between my admin and faculty. CJ, what sub-account are the training
Oh,
courses?
okay.
They're in the default sub account,
What's that?
the default sub account,
What's the name?
but I guess we don't have access to that.
No, I just need to push it down so I can add it to my course.
Oh.
There it is, okay. Man.
Manually rated.
Gotcha.
In this course, I want this concept, I want to figure out. This course, I have, probably this is a technical competency. Which is what.
Alright.
Standardization right now. Is competency. But you do know, it's not. But when you expect them to do this.
Now I'm gonna add my outcome that I've just pushed out to here. Okay. Apologies for that. Everyone? Yes. That's fine. Yeah. That's asking if that's okay.
While you're looking at that, so we have support here. Is perusal gonna be removed from the sidebar? Just checking. Perusal's now default shown as active. Is that gonna stay?
That had to do with the upgrade that we just did. There are some issues that came up with that. I think for now it is there, but let me get back to you on final answer on that. But it's still in process, I'll say that.
Gotcha, just checking.
Okay, one note that I want to say when you're adding outcomes, that little, a little checkbox in the middle of the screen that says use this criterion for scoring. That's really important. And by default, it means it's included in the course grade. Okay? If you do not want it included in the course grade in Canvas, you have to turn it off. I'm going to be using this for assessment purposes only, so I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to click import. Now, what that does is notice on my rubric, I haven't clicked update my rubric, and this is why we're doing this for the first time, is create. It's still listed as points, but notice the total points. It's not including them in the total points. What you'll see in the total points is only what's included in the course grade. Now, what that means too is it's going to pull forward in the Learning Mastery Gradebook, and it's also going to pull forward in the outcomes reports only. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click create or update rubric. So right now, let's create, you want to create an assignment that's worth 20 points or whatever it is for your course grade, value in course grade. So I'm going to go ahead up to my assignments here. And I'm going to pull up one that's not worth 20 because I don't have any ready-made for 20, but I'll just go ahead and use one anyway. Because you can override the points. Okay. Okay. Now, once you're ready for students to see it and be able to use it in your gradebook, you have to attach it to an assignment, or again, outline your outcomes in a test question, or your discussion points, your whatever it is you want to use it for. Okay. Below the assignment, and it's a little different discussions to add a rubric, but I can show you how to do that in a minute. You click plus rubric. Now, below the rubric, and you have to do this in an odd order. I think it's a little backwards, but what you want to do is look, you can build a rubric here, by the way, you don't have to go directly to rubrics, and this is what it's asking you to do. You want to click on this box that says use this rubric for assignment grading. If you don't select that, it won't, Canvas won't automate that part for you and allow you to click, 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 and be done. You still have to do everything manually and enter the points yourself in the gradebook. When you click this option, the rubric Canvas will subtotal all your points for you and automatically add it to the gradebook, which is what we want to happen. And then you go up here to find a rubric. Okay, so you have to go here first and then up to the upper right. Okay, you know it's backwards, but that's the way they have it set up. Now, here's what's nice about the rubrics feature. The first column is going to show you all the courses you have access to. So you can build one rubric in one course and you can use it in every course you teach if you want. You don't have to rebuild it in every single course. It's just going to copy it from the course you have into the course you are. So you will also see if you build a rubric at the sub-account level, you'll see the name of the sub-account there. And it would, then you would click that. Whatever you have in that first column, you click on it and shows you all the rubrics that are in that particular course or sub-account level. In the third column, you're going to see a preview of the rubric. You may have to scroll down using all these scroll bars. When you find it, you click use this rubric. Okay. Now, once you attach it, students will see it. Anyone in this course will see not only how you're grading, but the assessment criteria. Now, I want you to take a look at this because it looks a little different. So you'll notice the two criteria look very different, okay? The first one is how I'm grading in the course. So the ratings description are very specific. Those are the expectations you have to get all those points. And the second one doesn't show that descriptive rating. Again, that's because you're setting it at the sub-account level, and not everybody's going to use the exact same descriptive criteria for 4 points, for 3 points, for every single assignment or thing that you have. But that's why I put in a long description for in this example, it says right under assessment criteria example, that's what it takes to get the highest point value for that in the long description here. Demonstrate how to use the outcomes feature.
And so that's shown to the students right now.
Yep, students
where
can see this,
view.
faculty can see that, anybody can see it, yes.
And is there a way to hide it so the students only see what's applied to their grade?
No, sir. Unfortunately not. But what I found is typically, this is a very short rubric. If you're truly using this for grading, you're gonna have multiple criteria for how you grade. Students will scroll down and when they see there's no points in that last column, they ignore it. I've had one student ask what that was about. And 5 years of
So
using
the
it.
rubric shows up, and even though it's been scored, because we said it's not part of the grade, it doesn't show up for the student.
Correct. No, they'll still be able to see how they're graded on it. There just won't be any points on it. You'll see the point value
Okay, so
here,
instead of saying 4, 3, 2, 1, they'll see exceed mastering their mastery
or
below.
whatever you call that. And the nice thing about rubrics, you can still change those. So like, for instance, that first criterion, I have exceeds mastery, near mastery, and below mastery, and then no other. The first criterion could be exemplary, proficient, and so forth. The second one, see, you can call it something different, A, B, C, D, F, whatever you want. It's not a traditional paper rubric. You have to have everything in that column, the same thing, not here. And I can mix and match that. So if I only have, let's say I have a grading criteria like for spelling, I can say, 0 errors, or 5 errors, and you only have 2 criteria. You can mix and match that. So you don't have to have the exact number of ratings description for every criterion that you have. That's a nice feature for the rubrics. Not all LMSs have that option. Campus happens to be one of them. Now that it's attached, here's where the easy part comes for faculty. I know it seems like it's a lot of work, but I tell you, it's well worth it. Now, once you have a student submission, let's go to grades. Oops, sorry. Basically, the default is going to be what you see, the traditional gradebook view. Okay? To use a group rubric for grading is very simple. It's one of the things I actually like about it. So I think it's. Good question. Which one should I use?
It was EdTech tools and class discussion.
Thank you.
That's what I read.
It's not OSHA. Yep. Okay. So basically, yeah, and what'll happen here is when you use the box that you selected, use this rubric for grading. Watch what happens when I click the rubric. Pull this out, the grading pane, a little bit bigger so you can see it. Notice the grading box disappeared. The points. The reason for that is Canvas is going to take over and do subtotaling for you. So if you have multiple criteria, now all I have to do is click. So let's say for the thesis, and you see the student submission on the left pane, I want to make it at 20 points. I simply click there. And Canvas puts the 20-point value over to the right. And now I can just click on the remaining criteria. And once I'm done, all I have to do is click save. I'm not going to click save yet, because I want to show you a couple of other things first. Now, whatever you put in, students can actually pull it up in the gradebook and they can see how you graded on every one of those criteria. And you're going to get a lot less questions from students on how they were graded. So if they get a bad grade and they think they should have done better, they'll pull up the rubric. They can do that in Canvas in their gradebook and they can see how you graded each one of the criteria. You can also add comments on each one if you want when you're using a rubric. Over on the right, there's a little comment bubble right below the score. So it'll open a comments box. So I can say, great job, Joe, on this. Or if they did really bad, I can tell why they did really bad. And they will see that in their gradebook. And I can just go through and click, click, click till they're all done. Okay. So now that I've graded all of my criterion for the course grade, I can go ahead now and do the assessment all at once. I'll say he did mastery on this. Okay. Now all I have to do is click save. Canvas usually adds it to, and I gotta fix that, to the gradebook. It will see their point value here, and this will be 20 out of 20. I'll show it to you in a second how we can fix this. So I'm gonna go back to the gradebook for a second. My assignments. We'll check this.
Yeah, you said you could check it in advance, but it changes.
Not always. That's a bug. It is a bug that happens. It doesn't, honestly.
I've never been able to get back in there.
I have had.
So I just stopped trying. I just find the rubric and then go after it.
Gotcha. Now, the good news is, even though I fixed that, my rubric is there. All I have to do is go view the rubric and say it again. And you can continue grading your students by just clicking the little arrow up in the upper right corner.
So
In-
in
yes.
a scenario where you don't ask, the faculty member doesn't want to, where you're not going to ask the faculty member to be involved in insurance and learning outcomes-based assessment, they could do their grading and leave that the correct way. And then whoever is going to be the insurance and learning outcomes assessor could come in, make that, it's not gonna impact what the student sees.
No. What'll happen is you still have to build a rubric for just
Right,
assessment.
no, right, just those two, right, there's two items.
Right,
You don't have to mark all the items.
No.
So I'm saying the faculty member could go in on this case, do the thesis criteria,
yes.
save
Someone
it,
else-
move
yeah,
on.
Yep.
And then someone else could come in
absolutely.
and do the other.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Can they still do that after the course is closed, after the semester is over?
Yes, they can.
I think so. I think the rubrics are still alive.
Yes, you can. You can go back. It's not recommended because you want to make time to manner. And the purpose of having them on the same rubric, assessment grades don't. But yes, you could do that. You want to, you would want to set a deadline on that if you're doing that after the fact, because you want to make sure it's included in your reports you want, or you have to rerun them. And we do that. No, I'm gonna do them. Okay. Now I'm gonna go back to the grade book for a second, and I want to show you the Learning Mastery grade book, because right now, as you can see here, I can only see the 20 points. I can't see how I assessed it, which is why I asked and went through our approval process and turn on the Learning Mastery grade book. And to do that now, all you have to do,
Criteria.
it was turned on in December, change grade book, and these are your view options. Change it from traditional grade book to Learning Mastery grade book. Now, what that will show you is how all of your students, how you scored all of them on each one of those assessment criteria. And right now, I only have one student in here. So when you have a full score, let me show you in the test environment what it looks like with a full score. Now, first question, have all of you had your FERPA training? Okay, because I'll show you actual data from biomedical engineering, and how they did it. The test environment. So I'm going to okay.
Based on this, based on that. Not specific.
Scroll up and show you what it's done. So now, not only do you see how your students do, and again, it's nice and colorful, but you also, when I hover on the name of the criterion, it gives me a pie chart that shows me how all my students did on that particular criteria. So you cannot see the assessed, how you graded the assessed items without using Learning Mastery Gradebook. And this is the data that's pulled forward to the outcomes reports. Now, from each section, the faculty can export this and they get a CSV report as well, but it's only for that section. You have to use the outcomes reports for it to aggregate data across multiple sections. Now, some people get confused. I'm not sure how to get back to the regular grade book. So to do that, you just go back up to that grade view book option. It says Learning Mastery Grade Book and change it to traditional grade book. Any questions on how to assess that in a grade book? That's awesome. It does take a little bit of setup, and once the setup is done, it works a lot easier. It's easier for faculty because it's already set up for them. It's a little more, I wouldn't say completely error-proof, but it does aid in collecting data on anything you identify as an outcome.
Okay, so let's talk about the big picture. It's great. Is the university going down the pathway of saying, okay, let's adopt this, right, so from the standpoint, perhaps this needs to be redirected to our friend over there from
I've
OIG.
had
Right.
several conversations with Elise and Elizabeth Blanc on this. It's optional. We're not gonna require anyone to do this. But it can save a lot of time and effort, and this would give you data that you can add to. the-
It's optional additional, not
I would-
optional.
Go ahead.
As the only assessment data.
Correct,
It's optional additional, not optional sole,
correct,
right?
correct. But
So,
we can set this up so it can be the data you want to collect for. Yeah.
so the university level outcomes are currently being, the plan is to build those into the rubric, so they're available everywhere.
If we so choose to do that, which that
Well,
option is
I mean, from
available.
the standpoint of it's gonna be optional, they have to be there, otherwise everybody creates at the individual course level and then it doesn't aggregate up, so it needs to be
Correct.
created at the university level and pushed down.
Yes, sir, and that's what we're now exploring, because to be able to add them in the sub-account letter, those rubrics, that's a new feature within the last 2 years. So I'm just now getting into using that feature.
Yeah, it's really interesting that the thing that you can see, and showed us just a moment ago, using, what do we call that?
Learning
Grade book?
master grade book.
The Learning Master Grade Book, that all those are not at a sub-account level. So I could pull those out.
Correct, and the only way, which I can do, but again. it has
Right,
to
no,
be
do the
counted.
well, but I'm talking about from the standpoint of, you have to export and get the CSV and then build all those,
Pivot
dash-
tables, yeah.
pivot tables, dashboards, whatever you want to put it into your
Correct.
chosen analytics tool,
Correct,
rather than being able to view it quick and easy.
Correct. yes. I don't doubt that that's coming, Sean, it's just, we're not there yet without.
Oh, I doubt it. Instructure doesn't act like that.
You'd be surprised on some things. I'm not saying on all things. Outcomes, they have, one of the things they're working on right now, enhanced rubrics, the new feature they have. It's still buggy and it doesn't work well with outcomes and it doesn't work well with a sub-account grading scale. But they're working on it because they know it doesn't, so that's not why we have not turned it on. Outcomes has been one of their quiet products in the fact they've made enhancements and haven't been very real vocal about them because as you can see, it can be a little complex now. You have to push it out from the outcomes. And I'll be honest with you, the way I learned all of this, YouTube videos and talking to people who'd already been using outcomes. Because they don't have a lot of good instructions in this guy's for them. And trial and error.
So is public health the only unit on campus right now that's using those extensively, or have you already convinced engineering that's why you're building out the APAC?
No, what happened with that is kind of a fluke. One of their new faculty came from another institution that was using outcomes for AVET. And she realized how easy it was and how that, once it's set up, and she said, can we do that here? And that's what the impetus was to start it there. So again, it's totally optional. You do not have to use outcomes, but it has a lot of value. Any other questions I can answer for anyone?
Say an instructor is teaching in multiple courses, they only have the ability to do it at course level, right? So they can't, so their outcomes aren't gonna spread to every course that they're in, just they're able to make outcomes within just that singular course,
Correct. And then they can copy them.
right? But they're not gonna show up just because they're in the course.
Correct. And the only thing they can do from the instructor perspective is they can export them in each section.
Right.
They cannot aggregate, but once they have them in multiple sections, we can run that report that will aggregate it for them.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, the rest of the time, if you want to play around with it, again, I highly recommend that you do, whether it's in the live environment or test. Keep in mind, if you're in the test environment, the enhanced rubrics feature is turned on. So it's going to be a very different process to build a rubric and add outcomes with enhanced rubrics. You can absolutely do it in a live environment again, in any course, because you can copy it and no one's going to see it until you attach it to an assignment. And you can copy it from one course to another.
Public managers. I think Kim, your earlier question about the result.
Yes.
Yes, that was an unintended glitch, the factors in the notes. It was an unintended glitch when we upgraded to the 1.3. It's the same issue that Media Site had when we upgraded
For
Media
those of
Site.
you online,
So we can pull it back, but that would cause some issues, so CD's next side, just basically just to decide if he wants to run the script, or if we're going to put out some
Notification.
notification about it.
Well, I'm thinking it's active, and so when students click on it, it does do something, and so that's where I think we're just telling our to deactivate it.
Yeah. Which I think probably for now is the best thing.
And that's essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
That's what she said. Because exactly what we're gonna do, is export all that here until.
And go ahead and this report is in the event that you want to, in the future.
So you're gonna be able to figure out what GIS.
So that we can-
I'll get to the.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Forward to it.
Well,